The moment the truth surfaced, it didn't whisper, it detonated. It exploded like a buried royal bomb that had waited years to ignite, shattering whatever fragile illusion of peace still existed between Prince William and Prince Harry. This wasn't just another royal disagreement, and it wasn't another petty family feud quietly hidden behind palace curtains. This was the moment Prince William finally stripped Harry and Meghan of their last royal privileges after Meghan's secret was exposed, and the consequences were so brutal, so irreversible, that it felt less like punishment and more like an execution of identity itself. Because this time, there would be no negotiations, no emotional pleas, no late-night apologies. This time, the future king had already made his decision, and he had done it with ice in his veins. It began with something so ordinary it almost felt insulting. A plain cardboard box. No royal seal, no official insignia, just a lifeless, silent package sitting on the cold doorstep of Harry's Montecito mansion as if it had crawled there on its own. The California sun was sinking into the ocean, painting the sky in violent shades of red, like a warning that something irreversible was about to happen. Harry didn't expect anything unusual when he opened the door, but the moment his eyes landed on the box, his chest tightened. There was no sender, no explanation, just weight, just dread. He carried it inside slowly, like it might explode if he moved too quickly. His fingers trembled as he sliced through the layers of tape, each rip sounding louder than it should have, echoing in the suffocating silence of his mansion. Inside, there was only an envelope and a black USB drive wrapped delicately in tissue paper. It looked harmless, innocent, but the moment Harry pulled out the photograph inside the envelope, his entire body froze. His heart didn't just skip a beat, it dropped. The image showed Meghan, his Meghan, walking into a private medical facility. Her posture was calm, controlled, her expression unreadable, but she wasn't alone. Standing beside her, just distant enough to look deliberate, was Trevor Ingleson, her ex-husband. And above them, clear as a blade cutting through flesh, the words glowed on the building's glass entrance: Women's Health and Reproductive Medicine. The date burned into the corner like an accusation. October 17th, 2017. Harry stared at it, unable to breathe, unable to think, unable to accept what his own eyes were showing him. His hands turned cold. His stomach twisted violently because he knew exactly what that date meant. That was 2 weeks after their engagement announcement. 2 weeks after the world celebrated their love. 2 weeks after he believed his life had finally found its meaning. Then he flipped the photograph over, and everything collapsed. The message was written in black ink, sharp and merciless. Meghan has been found out. Ask her what really happened to the baby. The words didn't just sit there. They crawled into his mind. They poisoned him. They began tearing apart every memory he thought he could trust. His breathing became shallow, frantic. He grabbed the USB drive with shaking hands and plugged it into his computer. The screen flickered to life. There was only one file. The voice that emerged wasn't unfamiliar, but it wasn't the voice he remembered from childhood laughter or brotherly protection. This voice was colder, sharper, ruthless. It was William. And he wasn't speaking like a brother. He was speaking like a king preparing for war. Titles are not a game. Harry's entire body went numb. This ends before the Queen's 3rd death anniversary. The Royal Titles Act of 1917 will be enforced. There will be no negotiations, no mercy. The words sliced through Harry's soul with surgical precision. No mercy. William wasn't bluffing. William wasn't threatening. William had already decided. Before Harry could even process it, his phone rang. A UK number. He answered instinctively, his voice barely functioning. Prince Harry, the woman's voice said calmly. The process to revoke the Duke and Duchess of Sussex titles has begun. You have 46 hours to return to London. The call ended. Just like that. No explanation, no comfort, just finality. Harry stood frozen in the center of his mansion, surrounded by wealth that suddenly felt meaningless. Everything he had built, everything he had sacrificed, everything he had believed in, it was collapsing in real time. Within hours, he was on a private jet racing across the Atlantic, clutching the box like it was the last piece of his life that still mattered. He didn't even tell Meghan. He couldn't, because deep down, something terrifying had already begun to grow inside him: doubt. Meanwhile, inside Windsor Castle, Prince William stood alone in the private chamber that had once belonged to Queen Elizabeth II. The room hadn't changed since the day she died. It still carried her presence, her scent, her silence. It felt sacred, untouchable. He wasn't supposed to find it. The journal, dark green leather, hidden inside the family vault beneath the floor. But when he opened it, everything changed. The words written inside weren't political. They weren't ceremonial. They were personal, painfully personal. William's eyes scanned the page, and with each sentence, his face hardened. His grandmother had known. She had suspected everything. The lies, the manipulation, the emotional performance. She had written it all down, not as a queen protecting her crown, but as a grandmother protecting her grandson from a truth she knew would destroy him. She cried, the queen had written, but the tears never fell. William closed the journal slowly, his hands trembling, not with weakness, but with fury. This wasn't just betrayal. This was deception at the deepest possible level, and Harry had defended it, protected it, chosen it over blood. At that moment, William stopped being just a brother. He became the future king. He picked up the phone. "Find everything," he said quietly, and just like that, the machine began moving. Evidence surfaced. Witnesses came forward. Secrets that had slept in silence for years suddenly began screaming into the light. Evidence assembly, timestamp 0005,012 photographs. Messages. Records. The truth wasn't hiding anymore, and William wasn't going to stop because this wasn't about revenge. This was about erasing a lie that had poisoned the crown itself. Harry didn't realize it yet, but the moment he boarded that plane, he wasn't flying back to reclaim his titles. He was flying back to watch them die. Harry barely remembered landing. The entire flight from California to London felt like a blur stitched together by dread and denial. The closer he got to Windsor, the heavier his chest became, as if the air itself was rejecting him. The palace gates, once symbols of belonging, now looked like barriers meant to keep him out. Every stone, every window, every shadow whispered the same truth he refused to accept. He was no longer returning home as a prince, he was returning as a suspect. Inside Clarence's house, the silence was suffocating. No staff greeted him warmly, no familiar smiles, no sense of family, just emptiness, just cold procedure, just consequence. He walked down the corridor slowly, his footsteps echoing against walls that had watched him grow from a laughing boy into a man now walking toward his own destruction. At the end of the hallway, a door stood slightly open. William was inside. He didn't look up when Harry entered. He didn't smile. He didn't acknowledge him as a brother. He simply slid the green journal across the table. "Read it," he said. Harry hesitated, his fingers hovering over the leather cover like touching it would burn him. But when he opened it, when he saw their grandmother's handwriting staring back at him, fragile and final, his breathing changed. His eyes moved faster and faster across the page, absorbing words that felt like betrayal written in ink. His hands began to shake violently. "This was private," Harry snapped, his voice breaking under pressure. "You had no right." William finally looked at him, but there was no softness, no brotherhood, just steel. "She left it for me," William replied. Then came the photographs. William pushed them forward slowly, deliberately, forcing Harry to see what he had spent years refusing to question. Meghan, Trevor, the clinic, the dates, the proximity, the implications. Harry's entire body erupted with rage. "You never accepted her," he shouted, his voice cracking as years of resentment exploded at once. William didn't move. "You chose not to see," he said coldly. The accusation hit harder than any weapon. "You defended her," William continued. "You defended her over the woman who raised us, over the woman who loved you unconditionally." That was the moment something snapped inside Harry. Not emotionally, physically. He lunged forward. His fist connected with William's face in a single violent motion that echoed like a gunshot in the silent room. Blood spilled instantly from William's lips, staining the ancient floorboards beneath him. For a brief second, time froze. Harry stood there, breathing heavily, his chest rising and falling like he had just escaped drowning. William slowly wiped the blood from his mouth. He didn't strike back. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't react like a brother. He reacted like a king. "Listen carefully," he said quietly, "because this is the last time you will hear it from me." Harry's anger faltered. Something about William's calmness terrified him more than any scream ever could. "You and Meghan," William said, his voice stripped of all emotion, "are no longer members of the royal family." The words didn't echo. They sank heavy. "Permanent. Absolute." William reached for the silver bell on his desk and rang it once. The door opened instantly. Guards entered. Not protectors, not family staff. Guards. Harry stared at them, disbelief consuming him. "This isn't real," he whispered. But it was. It was more real than anything he had ever experienced. He wasn't being asked to leave. He was being removed. Escorted. Erased. William turned his back on him without another word. That was it. No goodbye. No reconciliation. No brother left behind. Just the future king standing alone, choosing crown over blood. Hours later, the Privy Council assembled in Buckingham Palace. The atmosphere inside inside was heavier than grief. It was the quiet burial of an identity. William entered without hesitation, carrying the green journal like it was both weapon and shield. He placed it at the center of the table. "This is not punishment," William said calmly. "This is correction." No one argued. No one objected, because everyone knew the decision had already been made long before they entered the room. 14 votes, 14 confirmations, 1 abstention, 0 resistance, the titles were gone, not suspended, not paused, gone. Forever. That night, Harry sat alone in a hotel room near Heathrow Airport, staring at the dark ceiling as everything he had once been dissolved into nothing. His phone vibrated. Meghan. He answered instantly. "Did you fix it?" she asked. No concern, no comfort, just expectation. Harry's voice barely functioned. "It's over." Silence. Then anger. "You were supposed to protect them," she snapped. Harry laughed weakly. A broken laugh. A laugh from someone who had just realized his entire life had been built on something fragile. "I lost everything," he whispered. Her response was colder than winter. "Then move on. No apology. No sorrow. No regret. Just survival." The call ended. Harry stared at the black screen, seeing not his reflection, but the ghost of who he used to be. He had sacrificed his family, his country, his identity, for love. And now, even that love felt distant. Outside, planes roared into the night sky one after another, each one carrying strangers toward new lives, new futures, new beginnings. But Harry stayed exactly where he was, because there was nowhere left for him to go. At Windsor Castle, William stood alone by the window, watching the sunrise break over London. The city was waking up to a new reality, not just a royal scandal, not just a family fracture, but a permanent shift in history itself. He didn't feel victory. He didn't feel relief. He felt responsibility, because being king didn't mean protecting family, it meant protecting the crown. And sometimes that meant destroying what you loved most. The last royal privilege wasn't stripped in anger, it was stripped in silence. And silence was final. Silence was final. Silence was final. Silence.